Hi there guys, and welcome to another episode of the Cover Zero Show with me, your host Simon Conboy. Carrying on with the draft preview series today, just over a week now until the draft, so finally moving on to the AFC. This episode will be focusing on the AFC North's Cincinnati Bengals. So if you've not seen one of these episodes before, I'm just going to be highlighting what I believe the team's major needs are heading into this draft, with free agency essentially being over at this point. And then going through the first 3 rounds, giving you my mock pick for round 1, and then offering up suggestions for players that will likely be available and considered at those spots in the draft for the team to try and attack those needs, as well as some other players that I think will be open for consideration. And I think the Bengals in particular are a fairly interesting case because in the last 2 years they've lost a lot of talent. Going into the season 2 years ago, I'd said it was one of the most talented teams in the league. It's been a bit of an exodus. I think there's quite a lot of work that needs to be done. So in terms of their major needs, I've got the wide receiver spot. That absolutely needs to be addressed. We saw last year AJ Green is great, but he got hurt. The passing attack went to pieces without him, and he needs a bit more support so this team can get a little bit more explosive. They also need some defensive end help. The defensive line's been a strength there in Cincinnati for a while. However, at the minute, it's just Carlos Dunlap. He's not quite a top-tier edge player. He needs some more help, need a bit more depth there, need to get more heat on opposing quarterbacks. And I also feel they need to address the safety spot. Haven't replaced Reggie Nelson, not getting a lot of impact play from that spot at the moment in time. Those are just some of the needs. I mean, I feel like they need a linebacker. They're going to need some offensive linemen, unless some of those recent draft picks pan out. This team's got a lot more needs than I would have expected heading into this year's draft. So, in round 1, in my mock, I've currently got the Bengals taking the Alabama linebacker Reuben Foster. They've got Perfect there. However, I don't know how long his time in Cincinnati's got left. He's of course had some issues in terms of discipline, fair few suspensions, and at the end of the day, this is a group that needs to be more athletic. There's definitely a role for Perfect, even if they do draft Reuben Foster. Need to strengthen up that group. I think he'd be a really good selection. Give him some impact play in that front 7. Although there are a lot of ways this team could go. I think they could certainly consider a running back. Jeremy Hill, I just don't think he's shown enough to think he's good enough to be a top tier running back. Gio Bernard's a great player, but he's just a role player at the end of the day. And there's some real talent there. I can't see Fournette falling this far. However, Dalvin Cook, I think he'll certainly be considered if he is indeed still available. They could also look. I think Mike Williams and Corey Davis will both be available. I think they will both garner some consideration. Pairing either one of them with AJ Green would significantly improve that group. And they could even potentially go with Cam Robinson. I'm not sure that's something they'd look to do. However, I think he'd certainly be worth considering to replace Kevin Zeitler, potentially play at tackle in the future. His draft status to me is going to be one of the most interesting stories to follow next Thursday. Sort of moving into rounds 2 and 3, this is where I think there's a lot of ways this team could go. I think they'll definitely look at the defensive tackle position, need to find someone to play alongside Geno Atkins. Either of the main 2 defensive tackles, who, I know I've mentioned them a lot if you've watched a few of these videos, but simply put, it's hard to know where they could go. I think this is definitely one of the landing spots at the top of the second round for one of those guys, McDowell and Caleb Brantley. I can certainly see them considering either one of them at this spot. Similarly, if they don't go receiver in round 1, I think they could look into whoever the top receiver on the board is, whether it's in round 2 or 3. If it's round 3, it could be a guy like Cooper Kupp. In round 2, maybe a guy like Juju Smith-Schuster. They could both certainly be available and would make a lot of sense. The safety spot's very good in this year's draft. I don't think they'd go safety in round 1, but you could get a guy like Buda Baker. A guy like Kevin King, if he's available in round 3, I think he'd be great value because he'd give them someone they could potentially play at corner as well. Obi Melifonwu, I'm not sure he'll be available there in round 2. he could potentially be great value though if he is, although personally can't see it. You could even consider corner. You can never have too many corners. The fact that they're still sort of playing Adam Jones, the artist formerly known as Pac-Man, they need to get a bit younger at the spot. Dre Kirkpatrick's been underwhelming. I don't think they'll go necessarily in round 2. I think maybe in round 3. See who's available at that spot. There could be someone full. There is a lot of talent there. A guy like Fabian Moreau, I don't think he'll be there, but you never know. Round 3 there could be Chris Wormley. He could be available. They could go for one of the lower rated middle backers if they're available. A guy like Blair Brown, Raekwon McMillan. They're both players I could see the team considering in those rounds. In terms of the pass rushes, it's tough. I don't see a huge amount of pure sort of 4-3 type ends. I think if they were to select anyone, it would likely be a project. So I'm not sure if I see them addressing that spot high up in the draft. Running back, again, a lot of backs available. I could see Joe Mixon being considered. This team doesn't shy away from taking players with off-the-field issues. He's an incredibly talented runner, and in terms of his talent level, he'd be a great selection at the top of round 2. I think they'd likely, if they don't go with Mixon, they'll probably wait until round 3, and then there could be guys like Marlon Mack will likely fall into that kind of range. I think any one of them would probably offer an upgrade on Jeremy Hill at this point. So, let me know, guys, what do you think the Bengals should be doing next week? Do you agree with my assessment? I really feel this team needs to get an impact class here. I think Marvin Lewis, if he has another bad season, then we may be looking at some changes coming in Cincinnati. A lot of talents walked out the door. Do you agree with my assessment of the needs, the players they'll likely consider? Who would you like to see the Bengals select? Let me know, whether it's in the Facebook comments below. Find us on Facebook at Cover Zero, or find me on Twitter at Simon Conboy. I'll do my best to get back to everyone who does respond. Thank you so much for watching. If you've enjoyed this, check out some of the other episodes. Covered all of the NFC in the past 2 weeks. There's a bunch of other stuff like the draft and franchise reviews. I think they were very good. And if you could like, share, subscribe, check out the Patreon, all that good stuff, it would be thoroughly appreciated. So thank you very much for your time. Pleasure as always, and go Bucks.